Good afternoon, and welcome to the midpoint of English 112 Composition 2 here at Delta College. So, at this point of the semester, you should be proud of yourselves if you have handed in the annotated bibliography because that means that you have successfully completed the first major assignment for this class. And so, the only thing left to do is to complete the second major assignment, which is the thesis supporting paper. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about where we're going to go for the rest of the semester, along with a couple of important dates that you want to consider, and then I want to talk a little bit about the final paper. So the first thing is the annotated bibliography. So I have pretty much everyone's annotated bibliography. A couple of you had a couple of issues and you are still getting me those annotated bibliographies. Make sure you get those to me no later than this evening. I am in the process of grading annotated bibliographies as we speak. So I would like to get everything done by Friday, but I'd like to give myself a little bit of padding. So give me between Friday to Monday to have everything done and all of the grades updated in e-learning. Now, when you go to e-learning to check your grade for the annotated bibliography and also to make sure that you're able to see my feedback, you want to make sure that you click on the grades tab. And then when you click on the grade tab, you should be able to click on I think from your perspective, it's your name, and then you'll see a list of the assignments. And you'll see the list of assignments, and then you'll be able to see that I've made comments. So when you go to the assignments, the individual assignments, and it will tell you the grade that you earned in the individual assignment, make sure that you click on the comments, because when you click on show comments, you'll be able to see the comments that I made on your paper. So what I've done in the comments section is that I've uploaded the draft, the final draft of your annotated bibliography, and I added comments on that. What I basically did was that I took the comments that you made from the discussion board post the partner made about your particular paper, and then I also took those comments that were given to you from the RIT Center, and then I wanted to see how you address those comments. And so then I used that along with the grading rubric to evaluate your annotated bibliography. So you'll see in your annotated bibliography is that I use track changes, and on the right hand margin you'll see the comments that I made. Make sure that you read those comments slowly and carefully, because that's my way of giving you all of the answers and the things that you need to improve on in terms of going forward with your next paper. Also, make sure that you are able to access, and this is not for everyone, but make sure that if in the comment section, if I have given you a link, make sure that you visit that link and make sure that you are able to access that link. I grade papers on a very individualized basis, and so I see the issues and see the things that you might be having in your writing, and so I like to individualize and personalize my feedback a little bit more by adding links to supplement the sort of general links that I've already uploaded on e-learning. So make sure that when you go over your annotated bibliography that you look at my comments and you make sure that you go over those things slowly and carefully, and then the links that I've provided, and this is, I didn't provide links for everyone, but I saw things as I saw things coming up, and if you needed particular help on particular areas in your paper, I added some links for you to consider for your next paper. Along with the comments on the right-hand side, I've also included the grading rubric for the annotated bibliography. So now you get a sense of how I grade, and you get a sense of what to look for in the final paper. So basically, I have a checklist of everything that you needed to have in the annotated bibliography, and what I've done in the blue font is that I've responded to each of those checkpoints that you need to have in your annotated bibliography, and I've rated each of those checkpoints based based off of excellent, good, adequate, and poor. And then you'll see a final grade on your paper, and you can cross-reference that with the grade on e-learning. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about your annotated bibliography, please let me know. And you can send me an email or ask a question in the discussion board post page. So the next thing, we have a couple of important dates coming up. The first important date that's coming up is June 10th. So on June 10th, you need to have a rough thesis statement. Now, I know that I've been flexible in the past with due dates, but the June 10th due date is something that you gotta stick to, because I want to make sure, or I'm gonna try really hard to get to everyone's rough thesis statement. That's the discussion board post where I respond to everyone so that you can get a sense of how you need to frame your final paper. Now, the thing about the thesis statement in relationship with the writing process is that creating a thesis statement is just a small part of the writing process, and it's a small part of the research process. Now, when we think about the components of the writing process and the research process, we don't want to think about those processes as being a linear sequential sort of process. So it's not this idea that you brainstorm first and then you pre-write and then you draft, but more so it's a recursive process. So you might be in a drafting phase and you might have to go back and do some brainstorming. You might draft, or you might come up or compose your rough thesis statement, and as you are writing, you might be on the 5th page of your thesis supporting paper, and you might have to go back and fine tune and refine that thesis statement. The reason why I'm saying this is because I want you to start thinking about a thesis statement as early as possible. And then I want you to also be open to a critique of your thesis statement, and be open and willing to see how that thesis statement is going to develop from June 10th until the due date of the final paper, which is June 26th. And so I'm going to be giving you feedback on your thesis support, on your actual thesis statement in the discussion board post number 3. On June 20th, you will have your rough draft due of your thesis supporting paper. Now, as a reminder, the thesis supporting paper is an extension of your annotated bibliography. So all of you that have experience with writing research papers in high school, that now you get a sense of my madness. You get a sense of the method to my madness, I should say. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to think about all of the steps that lead to the actual writing of the paper. So when you are writing a research paper, you don't want to just sit down the night before the paper and try to gather up all of these sources from Google and try to throw something together and call that research. But research is a very sort of tedious in a good way, slow process, and you have to be patient with the development of your ideas. And part of the importance of doing or conducting the research process is creating an annotated bibliography. And so as you can see, you'll use that annotated bibliography because you will have organized your notes so that you can write your argument and defend and support your argument with the information that you developed in your annotated bibliography. Keep in mind, however, that just because you have composed this annotated bibliography does not mean that you are finished with research. As a reminder, the research process and the writing process, they are recursive, which means that you will go back and you will be writing and you'll go back to some of the earlier stages. So that means that you might find yourself having to go back to the library and you might have to find some more research. You might have to, in the drafting phase, come back and revamp your thesis statement. So keep that in mind. You will not probably use every single source that you use in your annotated bibliography and your thesis supporting paper. And you might have to find more sources for your thesis supporting paper. Now, a comment on the sources that I wanted to address, and that I found that it was a little bit of a challenge for some of you, was this idea of identifying academic sources. So again, you want to make sure that you go back in e-learning and go to the annotated bibliography tab in the content section and review that link on scholarly and academic sources versus popular sources. And I've also included a link on how to identify scholarly academic sources versus popular sources on the on the announcements page. One of the telltale signs of identifying a scholarly slash academic source is that that source has in-text citations and it has a works cited page or a bibliography. Peer-reviewed work, academic work, scholarly work, the work that I want you to analyze and synthesize, that work comments and cites other academic sources. So your position as the writer is that you are a student who is analyzing this information, and to analyze means to break down that information, and then you'll take that to the next level in your next paper and synthesize that information, which means that you will reorganize the information that you have broken down to support your thesis statement. And so you want to be sure that you are using scholarly academic material. Make sure that you visit that link on the announcements page on how to read academic sources. Again, you do not read academic sources from the first word to the last word, but there is a process to reading academic sources so that you can make the most out of your time. Remember, I completely understand that reading academic sources for the first time is a very challenging process, especially when you are not used to reading that type of language. And herein lies the challenge. So you want to make sure that you visit those links on active reading. And I just want to go to the page right now so that you know exactly where that is. When you go to look at the active reading strategies, SQ3R, Reading Against the Grain, 6 active reading strategies, and the active reading strategies link from Princeton University in the content section. Cross-reference that information with how to read academic sources on the announcements page. And so it'll give you a sense of how to read academic sources, because again, you don't read academic sources from the beginning to the end, but more so you read academic sources to extract information. And in this case, in your final paper, you'll be extracting information to synthesize that information to support your main point. In terms of the final paper, the thesis supporting paper, again, the thesis supporting paper is an extension of your annotated bibliography. The research that you use in your annotated bibliography, you will use that in your thesis supporting paper. Make sure that you go to the Writing the Thesis Supporting Paper tab in e-learning and make sure that you review those links. You want to start off with the thesis supporting paper assignment sheet, and you want to make sure that you understand all of the requirements in the assignment. But then you also want to make sure that you have an understanding of MLA versus APA format. Which one are you going to use? If you're going to use MLA, stick to it. If you're going to use APA, stick to it. You also want to make sure you review how to conduct, or I should say how to compose, a good academic title. You want to make sure that you look at how to write introductions, bodies, and conclusions. And I also have a link on there on thesis statements. And I also have links on the difference between analysis and synthesis. I have a link on there in relationship to attributive tags. So that's one thing that we are going to, or I'm going to add some more links on the announcements page. And that is huge when you are writing your thesis supporting paper, is that you want to make sure that you provide clear attribution for your sources so that the reader can distinguish between your ideas and the author's ideas. I've also included links on how to format titles. So if you're using a book versus a short story versus an article in a newspaper. You want to be sure that you format that title correctly. And I've also included a link on how to use transitions in your writing. And the most important thing on in that section is the transition worksheet. That transition worksheet has been with me ever since ninth grade honors English class, and it has been with me up until, me being a grad student in a PhD program in English. And so the transition worksheet is really good because it helps you connect your sentences and your paragraphs. You want to be sure that you hold your reader's hand from the beginning to the end of your paper. So the transition worksheet is really good because it'll help you connect sentences and connect ideas logically. And that goes into paragraph unity and coherence, that tab in the content section as well. So the paragraph unity and coherence link reinforces the transition worksheet. And one of the most important aspects of writing is revision. I had a professor in graduate school who used to always tell us that writing is a process of revision. Good writers don't sit down and just write and just push something out the night before a paper is due, but rather good writers have a really strong proofreading process, and they have a really strong revision process. So I have included a link on proofreading techniques in the Writing the Thesis Supporting Paper tab in eLearning. And the last but not least, I've included the 2 examples that are written in MLA format from the students who wrote annotated bibliographies, so you get a chance to see how they've gone from the annotated bibliography to the thesis supporting paper. Now, unfortunately, students don't choose to write in APA format. So those of you who have chosen to write in APA format, you will be sort of my guinea pigs that I will use for subsequent semesters for students who are writing in APA. But if you have any specific questions about APA format in relationship to citations, in relationship to cover pages, do not hesitate to ask me. Again, I encourage you, particularly if you're going into the field of sciences, if you're going into the health field, if you're going into sociology, psychology, social sciences, I highly encourage you to use APA format. But the MLA format is more for the humanities and the arts, literary analysis, philosophy, film theory, film studies, critical analysis. So again, it's up to you. It's up to you in terms of how you're going to use, if you're going to use MLA or APA, but make sure that you're consistent. And unfortunately, I only have examples from MLA, but I also have APA examples from Purdue OWL. And if you have any specific questions about how to use APA, do not hesitate to ask me. Make sure that you review all of the links on eLearning. I will, over the course of the next few days, be adding more links on writing the thesis supporting paper and creating a thesis statement and best practices in relationship to revision and editing and proofreading. And I will upload those links on the announcements page. So make sure that you are continuously checking eLearning on a daily basis, and also make sure that if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, do not hesitate to let me know. So, good luck, happy reading, happy writing, and I will see you in cyberspace.